Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to continue talking about how to find those supporting details or evidence to support what you think the main idea of a text is. So just to review, we've talked about how the main idea should be found at the beginning, middle, and end of the reading. We've also talked about how to find different clues, like looking at the first sentence, the last sentence of paragraphs, looking for those words that are repeated. And they could be words that are the exact same or even synonyms for the same words throughout the text. And the last thing that we've just talked about was using that Panda Cub article, and we highlighted different words and phrases that supported the words that were used to make up the title, which was the main idea of the text. So we had all this evidence highlighted throughout the entire passage, beginning, middle, and end, that told us that that title was an appropriate title for that text. So today I'm going to challenge you to now go through an article and find different words and phrases that are repeated and used often, and we're going to look at all of those, put them together, and we're going to make our own title that we think would be the most fitting for it. So you can see here, I have an article that I've strategically placed so that you can't see the title of the article. What we need to do first is just do a general first read. Get the overall idea. We can formulate what we think the main idea is, and then during our second read, after we kind of have read the text and we have a better idea of different words that we saw multiple times, then we can go through and highlight on that second read. So let's go ahead and do our first read and try and get the gist of the article. As the wheels on the bus go round and round, many kids are getting bounced around. Many kids are getting injured on their way to and from school. A new study published in the medical journal Pediatrics shows that about 17,000 school bus-related accidents occur each year. That's more than double previous estimates. Those injuries range from cuts to broken bones. Researchers reported that crashes aren't causing all those bumps and bruises. Students are getting hurt in many ways. Slips and falls, getting jostled during stops and turns, and roughhousing are other ways kids get hurt. Nearly 1/4 of these injuries occur when kids are getting on and off the buses. Though the numbers are higher than thought, they represent a small fraction of kids. There are about 24 million kids who travel on school buses each year. School buses are still the safest way for kids to ride to school, according to the National School Transportation Association. These results may prompt stronger arguments for requiring safety belts on buses, but not all safety experts agree that buses would be safer if they had safety belts. Seat belts wouldn't reduce injuries and wouldn't be worth the added expense for school districts, says the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So if I think back to what I just read, I can kind of summarize each paragraph a bit. In this first paragraph, it's telling me about all the different injuries, or that there are lots of injuries from students riding on school buses. In the second paragraph, it's talking about how students are getting injured, but they might not all just be from crashes. They're getting hurt in other ways, not necessarily because they're not safe on the bus. This third paragraph talks about how school buses still are a safe way for students to be riding to and from school. And in this last paragraph, it's really questioning if seatbelts are needed. If you look right here, it's talking about stronger arguments. So this tells me that people are trying to figure out if seatbelts are needed or not. So now that I understand what each of the paragraphs is telling me, I can do a second read and highlight some of the words and phrases or synonyms that are used and try and put all of that together to make an appropriate title for this article. All right, let's get highlighting. I see this word bus at the top. I also see students, which I know I read several times. This word injured, and then on their way to and from school, I'm going to say that that's referring to the bus since it already stated that. Here I see school bus, I see accidents, which ties into injured. Again, injuries. And then cuts and broken bones are types of injuries. So I can say that those are kind of all associated with each other, even though they're not exactly synonyms. In the next paragraph, I see crashes, which causes those injuries, bumps and bruises, students again, hurt, which is another way to say injured. And then I might highlight the different types of injuries or different ways students are getting injured, because not all of them relate to those seat belts, which I know we talked about down here. In the third paragraph, here are our kids, which are students, traveling in school buses, since travel is, you use a school bus to travel. Again, school buses. Then I'm going to start seeing this word safe. Kids, ride to school. I see down here in the last paragraph, safety belts, buses, safety, buses again, another safer, safety belts and seat belts, which are the same thing, so those would be synonyms. I see now we're still talking about injuries, but we're talking about reducing injuries. So I have all of these words and phrases that are synonyms for each other or tied together in some way. And notice how I have some at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the passage. Now here's where it's important that we took that time to do the first read, because remember, right here it says prompt stronger arguments. So that tells me that people are discussing this and trying to decide if the need for seatbelts is great enough to actually spend that money to put school or seatbelts on all of school buses. So I might not be able to say that the headline is school buses need seatbelts, but since it seems to be talking about how there are lots of injuries, and some of them do occur on school buses, but not always just from being jostled around. Sometimes it's getting on and off the buses. Down here it does discuss the safety and the need for it. So I'm kind of given both sides of the argument. I'm given all the information and the research for these different accidents or injuries. And then at the bottom, it talks about how school buses really are still safe and that seatbelts may not be needed on the school buses. So instead of saying a statement like all school buses need seatbelts, I might have a title that could be more of a question, since people are arguing about whether or not they're needed. So, since I know that the headline or the title of articles should contain the topic of the paragraph, I need to maybe determine what the topic is. Some of the topic words are words that are being repeated over and over, so students, buses, injuries, and safety. So I might think about ways that I can put these words together to maybe form a type of question. So, do school buses need seatbelts to prevent student injuries? And if I show you the title, the official title is Buckle Up with the question mark, but should school buses have seatbelts? So, our title of Do School Buses Need Seatbelts to Prevent Student Injuries is pretty close to what the title and the subheading here of the article are. Should school buses have seatbelts? We know that seatbelts would prevent injuries, so that can be inferred there from the title. So to wrap it up, we want to first read for the gist of the article. 2, do a second read and highlight any repeated words, phrases, or synonyms in the article. And 3, put the most commonly used words together to form the main idea or the headline. Now it's your turn to try.